Today on the LA Food Podcast. It may be April Fool's, dear listener, but today's episode is no joke. You might recall me mentioning a couple of episodes ago that I had been tapped to moderate the latest family meal panel discussion on how restaurants rose to the challenge during the January wildfires. What you're about to hear is the recording of that panel discussion featuring 4 very impressive speakers who I introduced at the top of the recording. We discuss all kinds of important topics, including how restaurants can prepare for the next big crisis and what you and I can do to support them when shit inevitably hits the fan. Big thanks to the entire New School team for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I hope you enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed moderating it, dear listener. We'll be back Friday with our regularly scheduled programming. Father Sal and I have a ton to catch up on, including my trip to Vegas for Pizza Expo, controversy surrounding the newly minted chef of Elon Musk's Tesla diner in Hollywood, and Sal's brazen decision to cheat on me with another podcast this week. You won't want to miss it. As always, please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Luca, and without further ado, let's chow down. The LA Food Podcast is presented by The Lonely Oyster. Unwind at The Lonely Oyster's Echo Park Night Watch. Did you know that every night is industry night at The Lonely Oyster, dear listener? Stroll in after 10 p.m. nightly for a one-of-a-kind experience designed for the night owls and hospitality pros. Indulge in $12 handshake cocktails, expertly crafted liquid chef concoctions, delicious late-night hot bites, and chef's choice dozen oysters. More than just a place to unwind, The Lonely Oyster warmly welcomes industry professionals, providing a space where like-minded individuals can connect, relax, and enjoy the camaraderie that comes with the late-night scene. Whether you're looking to kick back after a long shift or simply enjoy the vibrant atmosphere, late night at The Lonely Oyster is the perfect rendezvous for those who appreciate good company and great food and drinks. Don't miss this nightly affair and let the good times roll at The Lonely Oyster. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome. As Paul said, I'm Luca. I'm the host of the LA Food Podcast. I'm also the host of the moderator for this event tonight. We're going to be discussing crisis management, donating, volunteering, and civic engagement for restaurants and the hospitality industry. Obviously, this is an extremely pertinent discussion given everything that happened in the city in January around the Eaton fires and the Palisades fires. We really saw the power when the industry comes forward. And tonight's really a discussion about how we do that, how we make it effective, and hearing from some incredible panelists who I'm about to introduce. To my left, we've got Stephen Pooks. He's the Executive Vice President of Risk Management at the Liberty Company Insurance Brokers. He's a recognized expert in catastrophe preparedness. He's pioneered groundbreaking programs like the Wildfire Protection Unit and Hurricane Protection Unit and advised the Biden administration's Wildland Fire Commission. He's also a volunteer firefighter, bringing his expertise and commitment to protecting communities full circle. To his left, we have Alycia Harshfield, the president of the California Restaurant Foundation and Restaurants Care. Since 2009, Alycia has led efforts to support restaurant workers and future hospitality professionals through job training, scholarships, and relief grants. A nonprofit leader for 25 years, she's built a career on fundraising, program development, and strategic partnerships, all of which are incredibly germane to tonight's discussion. Moving on down, we've got Lien, the owner of Here's Looking at You, a celebrated Los Angeles restaurant that's received a ton of accolades. It's been a James Beard semifinalist. It makes the 101 like every year. Is that right, Lien? Yeah. And she's also the co-founder of Regarding Her, a nonprofit supporting women in the food and beverage industry. And last but not least, we have Alexa Russo, the co-managing director of Homeboy Media, where she leads efforts to develop impactful media content that amplifies underrepresented voices. She has a proven track record in strategic fundraising, business development, and social impact with over a decade at Homeboy. Is that right? Okay. She's raised millions, built strategic partnerships, and expanded community program all over Los Angeles. All right, Lien, we're going to start with you. You know, you've led restaurants through a lot of crises. You've led restaurants through a pandemic and obviously most recent, the fires. I'd like to zoom in on the fires a little bit. Can you take us back to the moment that you realized that particular catastrophe was going to be a particularly serious one. How did you mobilize? What did you do as a business owner in that moment?
Well, it was a Tuesday, and it was my day off. The restaurant was closed at that time, and what when it didn't occur to me was when I was having coffee in Pasadena that afternoon at Mandarin Coffee Stand to meet two people, former All Day Baby people. I was returning a baby photo of my old sous chef that hung on the walls. I had just closed the restaurant a couple days before. And I met an investor who never got his $100,000 back, but he wanted 12 ADV water glasses. And I was like, I'll meet you here before your dentist appointment. And, it was so windy that day, and the sandwich boards were like flying around. And my former sous chef and I, both of these individuals live in Altadena. We were just catching up for 2 hours, and we just didn't think it was serious. We were just, I was like, sorry, I picked this windy tunnel to have delicious coffee with you. And that night, Eddie and I went to Holy Basil in Atwater for a 6:15 reservation. We were out by an hour, and he got a call from a reporter from the LA Times that said the real inn was burned down. And that for me was like real news. And so, of course, I reached out to the two people I just had coffee with. Paul lived like a block from the flames, and he was like, I just left. I'm in Atwater now at a friend's house. My chef's pig lives with him, so he took the pig and escaped to Los Feliz or Atwater or wherever it was. And then my investor that got the 12 water glasses, his whole house burned down. And so, for me as the business owner, I mean, one, you're just, of course, thinking about this level of catastrophe. And then you're also thinking about, well, do I just continue to open the restaurant tomorrow? And you're thinking about your staff, and you're thinking about just a trillion things. And for me, I was absolutely thinking about these people that were potentially losing everything that they ever knew or had, and their safety and all of that. So I think for us at work, we closed one day, the day immediately following, and then the day that we were going to reopen again. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, especially if you work in restaurants, the reservations are middling. So I'm tracking Open Table. It's my favorite app. No offense to anybody else's app. And I think I had like 30 covers to start that morning, and I just watched it go down to 4. And I was like, no one's gonna come in, and no one's gonna have shifts. I have to cut everybody. I don't even know who to save. I'll work because I'm not paid. And and so you're thinking about all kinds of things. You're thinking about a day's loss of sales. You're thinking about, why am I thinking about this? You're selfish. But most of us are also thinking about how we can help. And I think we all needed a day to just like absorb the magnitude of what we were learning in the news. And the following day, in my opinion, to help people activate, because I think people had like a pandemic-y reaction to wanting to stay in. And a lot of that, of course, was air quality and safety. And a lot of that was what I know a lot of people that their homes didn't burn down in Altadena had what they call some sort of guilt about their
Survivor's guilt, yeah.
right. And so, on all of these people in my restaurant in Koreatown in the middle of the city, they weren't going anywhere either when they really, they didn't necessarily have a reason for that. So we launched in an event. I think, events are a way to kind of massage an activity into a mobilization of giving. And so we did something called Waffle Sunday. It was just 2 days later. And, I'm so sorry to be long-winded, but the thing about restaurants, and we read all the articles and headlines about it, about how restaurants are the first to stand up and give back and like donate everything they have, and all the clothes and all the food and their walk-ins. But we can't do that. And and I was so concerned about all of the outpouring and the nature of all of the giving. And so for Waffle Sunday, I sort of was banking on the idea that people would love to come out for some waffles and some fried chicken wings if I just encouraged them and also told them there would be alcohol. Um, but I tacked on a $25 ticket fee. I called Katie, my Open Table manager, up. I said, this is how I want to set up my Open Table experience. People would pay a $25 fee to just come to the brunch, like a concert fee. And that would be what would get donated to what the effort would be. And then everything else we would just earn like any normal restaurant would so that we could pay bills, pay all the things, pay our staff, have shifts available. And I think we raised maybe like $2,800 just from those ticket sales because my restaurant is small and we can only make so many. But in the messaging, well, one, I had to think about where we wanted to give this money to. And what I ended up deciding was, I think all of the food donations at the time that are still going on are great, and everything is great. Anything that we're doing is great. All of those things were getting done. I love World Central Kitchen. I'm on their board too, but like they're getting a lot of money and they got a lot of trucks and Jose's out there. I was worried about my peers, my other fellow small business owners, the ones that lost their homes, the ones that were in those neighborhoods, the ones that were not in those neighborhoods. So I said that I would identify, because at that point I already had a long running list of people that I knew that had lost their homes, even just in the business, in the hospitality business or slightly adjacent my guests. So I would buy gift cards to restaurants and markets and small businesses and redistribute it back so that we could recirculate the dollars into the economy. I figured while I was at it, I don't know, I just decided if people trusted me, they could also Venmo me. So I listed my Venmo, and in the end, we raised 10 grand. And so I just sat there and I bought like 150 gift cards, like $500 to whatever small restaurant that I thought would make sense to wherever they were displaced. So anyway, I think this is a detailed example of what I think is a great way to think about, putting the mask on your own business first, just making sure we could see another week and see another payroll, but also get a way for the community to come in. I mean, they all came in, they were like, thank you for doing something. We've just been stuck at home. And I'm like, why? You live in Larchmont. So
It reminds me of what people say on planes, where you've got to like put your own oxygen mask on before to be able to help others. So yeah, that's really helpful. Alycia, along similar lines, obviously we've heard from an individual business owner, but you're the president of Restaurants Care, which exists in part to provide stability for food and beverage workers during times like these. When the fire struck, first of all, what was going through your mind, and how did your organization really get to work?
Sadly, we've been through a number of crises, and we've learned a lot because of it. The Restaurants Care Relief Fund launched about 8 years ago. And in our first year, the wildfires in Napa, Sonoma erupted. And that was a real wake-up call and a lesson, and then other fires and COVID. So on January 8th, the day after the fire started, we had a team meeting right away. And it was a list of what do we need to do to activate? What's our messaging? We immediately allocated $100,000 from our reserve fund to make sure we had some money to be a catalyst to the specific wildfire relief fund. And then it was things like how people want to give back and help. So how can we channel that energy? And we developed a toolkit, for example, on how to, maybe it's do a give back in your restaurant or motivate your community to get together and rally for everyone that's being challenged by the fires. So it was just a series of sort of lists, reaching out to people who've supported us in the past during crises. How do we build this fund so we're able to take care of what we knew would be the thousands of requests that would come to us? And we also had to think about how to prioritize that giving and those awards. And so we started off by the largest grant going to someone who lost their home or their business was burned down. And then it was, do you have dependents? And focusing on whether or not someone had access to other relief funding. Were they eligible for unemployment or not? If not, how do we help them bridge that gap? So things like that in terms of prioritizing and then getting the word out. And it was on the 14th of January that our LA Fire Relief Fund opened. And to date, we've awarded $633,000 to 641 individuals. And I think we'll be doing another 100 grants this week or so. And then, the long view for us, because we know this is a longer road ahead and people are still looking for jobs and hopefully shifts have picked up, but it's a bigger picture issue, is how can we help beyond this initial grant? And we'll explore things like maybe some rental assistance for people that are still struggling to find housing or still needing to find stable housing, I should say. And then we will be bringing back our resilience fund grants for independent restaurants with a focus on LA fires too. And that'll be in the spring, and there'll be more about that coming soon. So it's helping the restaurant, because if the restaurant is taken care of and they're open, their people are taken care of and can do what they love to do as well. And that's really important in terms of that stability. So, I mean, so many people rallied and worked so hard to give so much. And we're just really glad that we were able to do our part and be part of this community in that way. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but we're still giving away general hardship grants for anyone that has a other life-altering crisis. But yeah, we'll continue to do what we can in these bigger moments of crisis as well.
Yes, I mean, it's truly amazing to see how you jumped into action, and also Lynn too, how you as a business owner jumped into action. And I feel like that was a lot of people's first, response is like, how do we, jump into action here? But one thing that was that I was thinking about while you were talking is, but how prepared did you actually feel going into that moment to jump into action, to take care of your business during a crisis? Luckily, we've got Stephen here, who I'd love to ask, as you were an observer of this situation and watching everybody do their thing, in your experience, what are some essential steps every restaurant and business owner could take in order to be prepared for something like this?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I spend my days helping our clients at the Liberty Insurance Brokers prepare. That's what I do. I'm a preparation guy. And I'm always looking for opportunities to provide counsel and advice. And wildfire in particular is a peril where there is a significant body of work around wildfire science. And it's very basic and it's incredibly effective. And what we've learned since the fires of 2017 and 2018 up in Napa and Sonoma, the frequency and severity of events have gone up. And the wild card, of course, is the wind, and the wind played a significant role here. But what I tell all my clients is that it is critically important to be prepared for your property to stand on its own. And I can't help it. I was driving in here and my head was on a swivel. And before I even parked my car, I had this place completely checked out. Very high quality poured concrete, very excellent defensible space around this property. So we're in good shape. And
Vespertine is safe, everybody.
And there's two exits, one over here and one over there. But the ability to or the need to prepare is paramount. So just a quick statistic. 16,000 structures were lost during this event. All of the equipment that was provided by local, county, state, federal, and even international fire departments totaled about 1,900 apparatus. 16,000 structures, 1,900 apparatus. There aren't enough trucks to sit in everybody's driveway or in front of every building. Buildings must be prepared to stand on their own. And I'll share three things in particular that are the most impactful that you can do to your restaurant, to your home, to your apartment, to make sure that it is prepared. Number one, the zone 0 around a property, which is 0 to 5 feet, is the most sensitive and dangerous part of any property. And there can be nothing that is flammable within that zone 0 to 5 feet. I suspect that with the embers that were flying miles in the back alleys of restaurants and commercial buildings that were impacted, there were probably dumpsters, there were probably boxes, there were probably flammable materials that then became the ignition source for that structure. So number one, the 0 to 5 must be cleared of all flammable materials. Number two, most people don't know this, but structures often during a wildfire burn from the inside out. Does that make sense? how do structures burn from the inside out, right? It's a little puzzling. So I will tell you, quick engineering class on homes, roofs in particular need to ventilate, and there are vents that allow air to go up the roof line and typically out the ridge or out the gable ends of a roof to keep a roof cool. There are also vents in the foundation. These vents have screens on them. Typically, the screens can be a 1/4 inch aperture, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. They need to be a 1/16 of an inch. It is very common that during an ember storm, which we saw, embers get sucked into a house, into an attic, or into a foundation, and they sit there. And with the wind, there's constant fanning. We've all gotten on our knees and blown in a campfire or a fire, and you see the embers glow. That's what happens. And often homes and structures that have vents that are not ember resistant will burn from the inside out. So there is some very inexpensive retrofitting technology out there to retrofit vents for embers. So that's number 2. And then number 3, it's keeping things like Italian cypress trees, which firefighters call Roman candles, because if you walk up to an Italian cypress tree and you spread the green needles ever so slightly, you'll see the entire inside core of Italian cypress tree is dead material. So they go up very quickly. They're used as ornamental landscaping to flank front doors, to flank restaurant entrances, patios. They grow quickly. They grow up and around the eaves of the home, and they create an opportunity for a potential ignition source. So not only Italian cypress trees, but juniper bushes in particular, and chaparral and other oily-based plants. So those are 3 quick takeaways. That's from a preparation perspective. Those are things that I can share with everybody here.
I think I saw a lot of people taking notes, actually. And I was thinking about everything that's near vents in my home, too, actually, while you were talking.
The only other thing I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, fences, wooden fences that connect to a house or a building are like candle wicks. And many structures burned because the fence burned and the fire moved across the fence to the house or to the property. So an incredibly simple solution. You could certainly replace all your fencing with metal fencing, but replace that last section that touches the house with a metal section of fencing, and you break the ability of that fire to wick to your house. A very simple solution.
Very interesting. Now, well, I'm sure we'll come back to that probably in the questions as well. It seems like some very practical things to be done too that don't sound all that expensive too. You can kind of DIY them. Alycia, I want to bring you into this conversation. One of the themes that's been emerging tonight is finding ways to be helpful. And I think that a lot of people want to find ways to be helpful, but don't often know how. They want to volunteer, they want to donate, but they're afraid that their time or money might not go to the most effective use. We heard Lien touching on that earlier. What advice would you give to people when it comes to a moment like this in terms of looking for the right opportunity to give back, whether it's an individual or a business?
All right. Well, speaking from the perspective of Homeboy Industries, because I don't want to pretend I'm an expert on many other places, because I'm not. We tend to say that, people always ask us, like in the past, why don't you have an endowment? You've got to save for a rainy day. And we would say that's really tough because it's pouring every single day at Homeboy Industries. There are people who need us every single day. So when it comes to volunteering, or it comes to times of crisis and need, we say we love your help and we love your hearts, and please come and help us. Look to places like Homeboy that use 85%, 90% of every dollar that's donated that actually goes to the programs and services. The money that you give us will go to the programs and the people that we support. It'll go to our community. My very first job at Homeboy Industries was volunteer coordinator, and we were overwhelmed with just beautiful, incredible people who wanted to come. And they're like, I'd really love to help you. This is my degree. I can come on Tuesday afternoons between 2 and 3 p.m. And we're like, I love that. But,
we're a human services organization, and we're working with incredible human beings that need us, and it's difficult to schedule volunteers. So what we love is when people say, how can I help? Where do you need me? When do you need me? How can I show me where to stand? And I can't remember who it was, but somebody said when you really go to volunteer, just be ready to swab the deck and sit at the captain's table. We will absolutely need your expertise and your education and your special skill sets. And at a place like Homeboy Industries, where we have, I don't even know if I'm going to get this right at the moment, a lot of restaurants, let's put it that way. The Homegirl Cafe on Bruno Street. We've got a couple at LAX that at the moment, and help us with this, people with felonies are not allowed to work at airports, so our people can't work there. But we have many restaurants, one at City Hall. We have programs now where we're training chefs. Our chefs are phenomenal, and we have ghost kitchens. We sell our food all over the country. And so we would love help and support all the time. So we'd love, with your skills, help us run businesses, help us train people, and get in touch with us now. But when it's crisis time, it's actually money. And then help us to deliver the food. And when can I do one more thing? Okay. So
As many as you want.
So during COVID, we had to pivot. We closed the restaurants, and we were able to do Feed Hope. And through the county, we served over 10,000 people 3 meals a day who were unable to leave their homes. And by getting that contract, it kept our people employed. It kept our trucks running. It helped our people become housed, and it fed people who couldn't be fed. And because we believe that we don't throw people away, we believe in healthy food. We were able to feed people in a really robust way, and it helped us to build a resiliency and a new way of serving the community that now we're in hospitals and we're gearing up. So all of these opportunities, I think, for everyone is like you were doing, how can you pivot in a way where you get creative and it actually helps the community with what you already know how to do?
Yeah. So you wanted to add something, Alycia?
So I just want to echo those comments, and funding is always super important, and to listen to the organization that you want to support and trust them to deliver the services that they're designed to do. And I think in terms of volunteerism as well, it's the backbone of all of our communities, right? It's so important and so critical. And in times of crisis, we want to jump into action very quickly, and sometimes taking a moment to think about what is going to align with something that I care about, and how do I then support a nonprofit that's currently doing that, so I can amplify their mission, amplify their work, and make it even bigger in the community. Because as well intended as sometimes it may be, coming to a nonprofit with like a bespoke idea or a certain thing that's going to fulfill a volunteer's need can distract and detract from what the mission of the organization is and needs to be done. So I think finding something that aligns with what's important to you, maybe your experience, and then that question of how can I help is so valuable. And those unrestricted dollars that allow the nonprofit to serve the community like they do, just incredible. But volunteerism is key. My first job in nonprofit was a volunteer coordinator too. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. So anyway, just wanted to add that thought of how can I help that's going to take what that organization is currently doing and make it bigger and better and more effective and more impact in the community.
And just to follow up on that, when you do help in ways that the nonprofit needs, we start talking, right? And we'll listen to your ideas, and then watch out, because you'll be leading that idea. And then, you'll be the chair, and then it'll be something that then becomes part of the program, and you'll be raising money for it, and it'll be real, and it's going to help a lot of people. But in the beginning, it just starts with like, put on the apron and just get out there and just help. So I would say that.
That's really cool. You know, one thing that stuck out to me about what you were telling when the anecdote regarding the pandemic and about how, you know, you basically pivoted in a way that sounds like it ended up boosting your organization because it gave you a whole new sort of remit, allowed you to put more people to work. I feel like oftentimes there's a tension, or at least it seems like there's a tension between giving back, volunteering, and operating a business, especially a restaurant that has such fine margins. I want to ask you about that, Lynn. You know, how do you balance that sort of like need to make money, but also this sort of other impetus to be part of the community and to give back?
It's a delicate balance for sure. I think like I mentioned earlier, I think finding a way so that you're not giving away every single resource you have. So it's like I guess a good way to think about it is like your whole shopping cart. Like you can't give away your whole shopping cart if you also still have people in your building that you need to feed, like in your family. And so finding another way and trusting that, you know, people will show up to pay the extra. Or if, you know, if I'm donating, right now we're doing a $20 tiki sake cocktail from a sake donation that I received. And we're donating back to the restoration for the Altadena Arts Magnet School. And just from a cocktail alone, you know, it's raised, I think, $1,100 as of today, just in the last week or so. But just something that it makes sense. And I learned this just from, I think, in the early days of 2020 and thinking back of like you donate the profits off. You know, like if you're selling a $65 dinner, make sure your bills are paid and you paid all your food, and then the rest can go elsewhere. But, you know, for me, I can, in moments where giving back, at least when you're a restaurant owner, sometimes relies so heavily on the chef and food. Like I think everyone assumes that a restaurant can always give food. And I run a really lean team right now, and I ask an incredible amount from them, especially my kitchen. I have a 3-person kitchen team at the moment. They're pretty magical, if you ask me, but I couldn't ask them to also produce 250 sandwiches today. So for me, I leaned on my own skills. And as insecure as I feel sometimes in these moments of crisis, and I can't cook, nobody needs me to cook, like, you know, but I can provide a service. I know I on any day off, I'm supporting a small business. So I have an incredible glossary of, you know, small businesses in any neighborhood that you ask me, and I will support you. So people DM'd me, complete strangers asked me, oh, you know, I live in Idaho, but I know somebody that lives in Santa Monica and I would love to buy them gift cards. I was like, I'll send you a whole list. You know, if my friend Shane wants to pick my brain about what Open Table can do in this moment, yes, you can use me. If my friend Valerie wants to host a dinner to raise $10,000, but her place is a cafe and doesn't normally do a 4-course menu, I'll come on a Saturday night and my team will be fine and run service for you, you know? And it's like, those are things that I felt like I could do. I could still provide a service. You know, for Eddie, you know, I know he needs money for the IHC. I don't have that money necessarily to give him or the time to fundraise. I can do it, but you know, I used to be an editor and a writer, so I edit the IHC newsletters. Just do something. But like Alexa was saying, it's great to volunteer and say, how can I help? Sometimes I actually get overwhelmed by the question, how can I help? But if you have an idea or you're willing to raise your hand, it really is helpful if you're also feeling that confidence and you'll lead the project too. This is what I tell my staff all the time. My all-day baby staff, you know, I love that restaurant because I loved those people. That was a pandemic restaurant through and through. And what I think that they all learned was to develop your own ideas. And I will be here to vet them, make them better, support you, amplify them. And, you know, and these leaders, these young Gen Z leaders, you know, grew out of that space. The best thing that they taught me as far as donating was show the receipts. Like, that sounded scary to me at first. But I was like, what do you mean show the receipts? Kelly Cole, shout out to Kelly Cole, who's very young. But, you know, when we did one of our first major bake sales in support of Black Lives Matter in 2020, I mean, she was just like, we are doing nothing. There are 30 employees in this restaurant because not a single person is going outside, and we had to employ 30 people for the PPP loan. We have a platform, we need to do something. But if we're going to donate, Lynn, like, you have to screenshot it and show that you donated. Like it is breaking my heart to see people that have lost their homes in the Palisades or in Altadena. And they're like, they're calling out some organization here and there. And they're like, when have you donated? Who are you donating to? Because these people are not getting the help. So if you say you're going to do it, you got to show that you did it.
I just wanted to follow up on that. Homeboy Capital is a part of Homeboy Industries. For those of you who don't know, Homeboy Industries has been around for 37 years. We started with Father Greg Boyle in Boyle Heights, and we're now somewhere between $40 and $50 million a year nonprofit, and we pay our own way. We don't really get. We get a lot of donations from people, not a lot from government. But Homeboy Capital, what we've been doing now is we've been starting businesses that are led by our community and our people. One of them is Tepito Coffee in Pasadena. And one of the things we did there was when you buy a coffee, we donate a coffee. And that was something that worked really well for us. And the coffee cake that we have here today, we were giving that to the firefighters. And it's something that we do from the get-go there is like, if you can sweep, grab a broom. If you can, if you can pick up some garbage, do it. Like, what can you do that doesn't really cost much of anything? But, we're by Twin Towers and Men's Central. So we give food out in the back, but we don't give too much. I wanted to give some people food, and Cynthia, who some of you may have seen on the emails, she's like, don't give too much, because we care about our businesses, because we care about our community, and we need to be solvent so we can be here, so the doors will be open, so we can stay here. And so it's like, we try to build it into our budgets that we always give back. But what can we do for free? And with us, it's our bakeries, because it's less expensive. We're not giving away, our delicious tacos, Zagat rated tacos. Oh, and that's the other thing is, Thomas Keller has trained our chefs, right? Mary Sue Milliken and the Border Grill girls, they've trained our people, like our chefs. You guys can please help us. Nancy Silverton's doing a dinner for us soon. And you don't have to be super famous. We're saying help our chefs get better, hire our chefs. That makes a big difference. Everybody, if you hire one, it helps marginalized people, be able to end cycles of poverty. Hourly wagers, are people who work hourly wage and do 2 jobs and don't have insurance. Maybe they work somewhere where they'll be able to manage someday and do something for themselves. And that's what we're really about. The food is bomb, but that's why we have the restaurants.
Food is bomb, and that's important. You bring up firefighters, and we're lucky to have a volunteer firefighter with us tonight. One thing that occurred to me as we're talking about help, we're talking about, restaurants getting into action. We've got folks from World Central Kitchen here tonight, and, round of applause to them. But, one of the ways that restaurants really stepped up is in feeding those first responders. And, I think it's oftentimes really important when you're sending help to think about how is that help being received so that it can be the most helpful. I'm interested to hear from the firefighter side, what is most helpful from restaurants? What kind of support is most helpful, and how is it, best received?
Full disclosure, I live in New York. I spend a lot of time out here. I spend a lot of time helping clients out here prepare for events. First of all, I think a thank you is really all that's necessary, and even that's not necessary for firefighters. Quick story that actually pulls me into the restaurant scene is that about 2 months ago, in my community, 3:30 on a Saturday morning, we get called to the firehouse for a fire. And as I'm driving down the street past a Michelin star restaurant called Blue Hill, Dan Barber, executive chef, I see the sky is completely lit up. Get to the firehouse, assemble 3 or 4 of us, and we respond to this fire. We pull around to the back, and the entire back of the building is completely involved in fire. Fast forward, 60 firefighters from 10 different companies show up, all volunteer to put this fire out. And this is a restaurant that does a tremendous business, a lot of weddings, big events, but also the restaurant business. We were able to put the fire out and keep the damage to a minimum. Fast forward 6 days later, Dan Barber invites all the responding firefighters to a Thursday 3 p.m. family meal. And so I didn't know what to expect. And so I walked in with several of my colleagues to a room that was filled with 110 people, all dressed in their kitchen whites, two lines they're going through, getting all their food, and the firefighters come walking in and really fish out of water, out of place. And Dan Barber stands up and asks for everybody's attention, and he asks every firefighter in the room to introduce themselves. Now, I'm a little more comfortable in front of people than the average firefighter, so this was a big ask for some of these guys to stand up in front of 100 and some odd people and say who they are and what department they work for. And he asked the chief to talk about the evening, and then he said, so, how many of these firefighters are paid firefighters? They do this full time. And the chief said, none. All 60 people that are here are volunteers. And the entire room stood up and applauded for, it must have been 90 seconds to 2 minutes. And it was very overwhelming. And I realized then that what we did was to keep all of these people employed. Had we not done what we volunteered to do, which is to interact with people on the worst day of their lives, which is what you do as a firefighter, it has implications. It has implications for the families of all these individuals, and hearing fellow panelists talk about the impact of these fires on the restaurant community, as well as the broader community, it's incredibly powerful if you can do something. And I think, I'll also speak for myself. If I can do something, I'm gonna do it. My day job is helping people prepare to prevent the worst thing from happening, and my after-hours work is to help people when they have the worst day possible. So, just a little perspective.
Dude, you're like Clark Kent, It's like risk by day, firefighter by night. That's crazy. Well, how are we doing on time? Are we Q&A a few? Cool, because I had one question I wanted to ask. Obviously, we talked about volunteering and donations and helping during a crisis, but I think that it's also important to keep perspective of how to keep doing that even in times that aren't necessarily a crisis. And obviously we've got folks from CRA here tonight. We've got folks from the IHC. And one way that I know restaurants can do that is through civic engagement. And I wanted to ask Lien this question because you're someone who is very civically engaged. You're obviously, you founded regarding her, but I feel like every week I see you on Instagram with a sign at City Hall, so you're very civically engaged. And I wanted to hear from you, what is the business case as to why you do it? Like I feel like a restaurateur could just be like, somebody else will do this for me, right? Why do you actually do it?
I mean, thank you for saying that. I don't honestly think about it from the business perspective. I think it actually ends up lending itself. They say giving gives back, or I don't know who says that actually. I'm saying it. I just have like enormous amounts of empathy, and I work so much that I know what it's like for my fellow independent small business owner. I know what the hardships and the anguish that it is that they go through. Honestly, I think the easiest way to help, and this includes restaurant owners, is that they really should just go out and eat at other restaurants. I really cannot emphasize that enough. I think it's really easy to not. I know you break bread real well now at home, but like you can take a break and like go and spend some money at a nice restaurant that really needs the help on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday and on Thursday. And tell people where you're going and attempt to go back to a place that you love and go back to a place you said that's been on your list for 6 years. It might not be there in 2 weeks. I think that is the first thing. So I think that's probably where it stems from. I think with regarding her, for example, the inception of that was that I was on a Zoom call with 8 other women. One was breastfeeding, the other one had children in the background blurred out. And it's like they didn't have childcare at that time. It was 2020. They were running their businesses. We were all talking about how we couldn't find heaters. It was going to be cold. And I knew we all needed money, and I knew we all needed business. Business makes the most sense for people to like compute. So give them a list of women-owned places, that are struggling to support their families and their businesses at the same time. Show them a Google map, tell them what they're doing, tell them this time in this place, on the anniversary of the Women's March, let's go, 10 days, go and do as much as you can. Find rich companies to support grants and find a very easy way for people to apply for grants. When I saw all of these people who lost homes and I knew the first thing I thought of was like, oh my God, like how are they going to apply for money? I even said to somebody's podcast, like I was like, I don't get insurance like at all, but I hope that they come through and they get bailed out too, because this looks like a lot of money. This was January 8th when now I have more figures attached to it, billions. And it will come back to you. So if you're out there and just use your own resources and your own people and find a way to engender trust. I was floored that people Venmo'd me. I mean, my God, I could have gone shopping, but and I did go shopping, but it's like, it would just come through. I mean, I had these guests that we fed every Saturday at All Day Baby for 5 years, even through the pandemic. They bought 1 million martinis to go. It was so cool. She sent me $1,000. And like the next time I saw her, I was like, Sarah, you gave me $1,000. Like, I can't, thank you. And that's ridiculous. And this is what I did with it, just so you know. And she was like, my husband and I, we sat down and we really wanted to think about where we were going to make our donations. And we believe in small restaurants. We just lost yours. We don't want to see others gone too.
It's a great note to end on. Get creative, give back. Ladies and gentlemen, give it a round of applause to our panelists. Thanks for tuning in to this bonus episode of the LA Food Podcast. Thanks to Paul Pruitt and the entire New School team for putting on a sensational family meal. If you liked what you heard with respect to family meal, please make sure to go give both New School and Family Meal at It's Time for Family Meal a follow on Instagram to find out when their next event is. They hold these events quarterly and they are absolute must-attends for anybody involved with the restaurant industry, whether you're an owner, whether you're a chef, whether you work at a restaurant, or also if you're a member of the media or just an interested diner like myself and Father Zal. We'll be back Friday with our weekly episode, so be sure to tune into that. And if you're looking for me in the meantime, you can find me on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, and even our website at the LA Countdown. That's TheLaCountDown. You can also find us on Instagram at LA Food Pod. That's LAFOODPOD.